we acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting, chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world, and explore the stories behind their songs. I am your host, Simon Fink, and as always, thank you very much for joining us. I'm very excited about this week's guest on the podcast. It is a bucket list guest for myself, if I'm being honest. Our guest this week on the pod is Iron and Wine. The beloved folk project of songwriter and musician Sam Beam, Iron and Wine has been making music under that moniker for over 20 years now. Across that time, Sam has collaborated with artists like Fiona and Band of Horses, and his music has become deeply woven into pop culture, with some of his songs featuring in shows and films like The OC, Garden State, and the Twilight Saga. Later this month, on February 27th, Sam returns with his 8th studio record titled Hen's Teeth. It's another beautiful evolution of the Iron and Wine sound, one that sees Sam subtly pushing things forward once again, this time incorporating touches of jazz and other elements into his warm and already thoughtful songwriting. To celebrate the release as well, Iron and Wine are heading back down under, touring Australia for the first time in over 8 years. This run includes headline shows alongside appearances at WOMADelaide and Port Fairy Folk Festival, kicking off at the end of February and running through early March. Now, on today's episode, we're incredibly stoked to be chatting with Sam Beam from Iron and Wine about Hen's Teeth, how the Iron and Wine sound continues to shift from record to record, and what fans can expect from these long-awaited Australian shows. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Ali for her help with today's episode and remind everyone that the new Iron and Wine record, Hen's Teeth, is out on February 27th, with the Australian tour kicking off in Perth on the very next day on Feb 28th. You can find links in the show notes to pre-order the record and grab tickets to all of his Australian tour. Now, while you are in the show notes, please make sure you subscribe to This Song Is Yours and go and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We would really love it if you did. It does help us out and it keeps you up to date with new episodes, guests, and everything else that we've got coming up. And with some really special celebrations for our 500th episode being announced very soon, you will not want to miss what is ahead. All right, let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Sam Beam from Iron and Wine.
So I name what I lost, whether really lost or not. And I keep making for a door that isn't open. Praying for dry ground. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Sam Beam of Iron and Wine. Sam, hello, sir. How are we?
Good, Simon. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you again for some of your time today. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast and to chat all things Iron and Wine. It's a busy time at the moment for yourself. There's a new album coming out. There's an Australian tour weeks away, which is super exciting. How are you feeling with all the busyness kind of surrounding you at the moment?
Oh, very excited. It's been a long time since I've been to Australia, so I'm very excited to be back. It's always great to have a new record out, new things to talk about, and just all things new.
That is exciting to hear. The new record that is coming out is titled Hen's Teeth. It'll be out in a few weeks when people are listening to this chat, but I believe that it will be out by the time you're in Australia, I think. So audiences, I'm hoping, are going to get to hear maybe some of these new songs for the first time live.
Yeah, it's very likely. It's very likely. It's very excited to be able to play those new songs and also just be back. I haven't been back in Australia since 17 or 18. It's been a long time.
Yeah, right. That is a decent innings between shows. I am curious, and I was going to touch on this a little bit later, but maybe while we're talking about it, I think I caught you maybe on the tour just before that one, maybe around 2012, 2013 at the Forum in Melbourne. Is there a clear distinction? Is there a clear kind of thing that you can notice when it comes to Australian crowds versus like the hometown, the US crowds?
Well, there's a lot of different types of cities in Australia. But yeah, I mean, overall, I love being there and playing for Australia. They just love music. It reminds me of being Scotland and Ireland have a similar thing. The States, there's lots of different types of audiences. and you just never know what you're going to get. But usually in Australia, people just love. I think they love music, one, but I also think they're just happy that someone made the trip. It means a lot, I think, and so I'm very excited to come back. I always love being there.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think we are acutely aware of the effort, the time, the painstaking flights that it does take to come visit us. So we're usually very appreciative when people do come and play some music for us. It is very exciting. You've got a number of dates of your own, some solo dates around the country, and then I believe appearances at WOMAD and Port Fairy Folk Festival as well. So
that's right. Plenty
of opportunities for people to come and see you. I'd love to, if possible, talk about Hen's Teeth a little bit and talk about this brand new album of yours. As I mentioned, it's coming out in a few weeks when people are listening to this, but we've been very lucky enough to listen to it before that. And so thank you for that opportunity. It is, Sam, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous album. I don't want to kind of
thank you.
Bring it down just to one or two words, but it is one thing I kind of have always loved about your music and about Iron and Wine is the fact that it is always distinctly you, and I think that's maybe plays into your voice as well. But with each record that comes out, from Endless Numbered Days to Kiss Each Other Clean to now this new one to Hen's Teeth, there's always little bits of evolution. There's always something that's kind of slightly changed, and maybe it's the sonics, maybe it's the way of songwriting. And I'm curious, this time around, is that considered when you're going into a new album? Is evolution ever in the planning stages of the album when you're kind of trying to work out what you want to do with this record?
Definitely, it definitely is. I mean, I think there's a certain number of things that are always going to be consistent. Like what you mentioned, my voice does what it does. I've tried to fight it, and it's always going to win. But there are other things that you can manipulate and see what happens. And so, it's definitely in my mind. I don't like the idea of just, putting out the same record over and over again. I don't like the idea of listening to the same record over and over again, as a fan of other people. And so there's no right or wrong answer about like how far to push it. So you just sort of trust your instincts and see what happens. I've found over the years that lucky for me, for good or for better or for worse, it's a band with one permanent member. And so it's easy for me to switch up the personnel, people I'm collaborating with, and inevitably it'll sound relatively different. I also have to end up rehearsing the same songs several times over with different bands. But at the same time, I'm lucky when I go into the studio because it's inevitably going to sound slightly different.
Which I think maybe is where that power kind of lies a little bit. I know, what was it? There was a certain, I almost want to say like fluidity and lucidity almost in these songs. It was like almost elements of jazz in a way, maybe not the actual sonics, but the way that the music was being played, which I really loved. And I thought gave a new energy to what people might consider Iron and Wine, that like the music of Iron and Wine, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Everyone in the room was, jazz musicians. Not that they only play that, but they can play lots of different styles of music. They're all live takes, which I think makes a big difference. It feels like a human statement, not a machine statement, which I think is kind of important. I like computer music, but it's also for what I think considering what I'm talking about, it feels appropriate to have like a heartbeat kind of pulse, which can go faster or slower. It just sort of does its thing depending on what we're saying. I think that makes a big difference. But like you said, I think the voice is sort of the unifier over the course of like the different records. I've literally tried to do like free jazz freak out moments, and the minute that I start to sing over it, sounds like a lullaby of sorts.
I don't think any fans would complain, though. I think you're probably very lucky in one of those voices that are, regardless, it might be metal, might be spoken word poetry, whatever it is, that it will people will enjoy it regardless.
Right. Yeah, thanks.
Of course. I know that on this record there are some collaborations, I believe, with the folk trio I'm With Her, who appear on, on Robin's Egg and Wait Up.
That's right.
Kind of really really excellent additions to these tracks in terms of just giving them a different depth, I guess. And I know that you are a fan of collaboration and kind of working with different people. What was it about I'm With Her that made them right for this project and for Hen's Teeth?
Well, I'm just such a fan. They're so pro. It's so crazy. They're just so good at what they do. And they're all personal friends already. We had some shows lined up. We were going to play some shows together. And I thought it would be really fun to, just have some new material for us to play on stage rather than just, play on each other's songs and figure out a cover to play together. We just have this new material. And so we did it, and it was super fun. They were game. I sent them some weird lyrics, and they were like, yeah, okay. I had, when I went into the studio to make Light Verse, the last record, I ended up with a lot more material than I thought I was going to have. And so I had these songs laying around, extra songs laying around, and it seemed like a fun addition to those songs to have. I went in later and did these 2 extra tracks with them and just sort of added them to the bunch. But it was nice to be able to go in knowing what that ensemble, we kind of create a sonic identity over the course of making a record. You kind of know what this group of people do, how they speak and what they sound like. And so it was fun to know, to write for the girls' voices and the band, knowing what they could all achieve together. It was a different feeling than, writing the songs, in a vacuum before I put that ensemble together. It was a fun challenge.
I imagine probably challenge is the best word to use in that scenario. I imagine that it kind of is almost like a different, it's using a different songwriting muscle for yourself in a way.
Yeah. It's nice to know what element you're playing with.
Exactly. There was another collaborator, I want to say, on the record that I did want to highlight, which was Arden Beam, which people might not be aware. Your daughter features on the record on some harmonies and some backing vocals, I believe, which is a really, I can only imagine, a really special kind of thing to have on a record for yourself.
Oh, man, my dad, well, just happy dad. I'm going to say I was just so proud. It was so fun. She's such a great singer. She's very shy. She doesn't want to go on tour, but I was lucky enough to convince her to come in and do some stuff, do some singing. It's a real treat because she was born around the time where I started putting out records and touring, and it's just a fun another chapter in this story. I'm just so proud of her.
That's lovely to hear, and again, it is exceptional work from both Arden and I'm With Her, and from yourself across this record. I know that Australian fans are going to be very excited to catch you on tour and to be able to kind of consume this record once it is out. I do have to kind of ask, I know you said maybe 2017, 2018 from that last one. Are there any key memories from Australia that kind of stick out as those ones that you remember the most of Australia?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been several times, lots of different memories. The first time I came, I was opening up the shows for the Shins with James Mercer and the Shins. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I'd ever been to Australia at all. And so it was, those probably stick in my mind the most because it was such a new experience. And over the years, I've done there's a song called The Trapeze Swinger, which I wrote when I was in Melbourne, I believe, like just looking down on the streets. And so that has a special place in my memory. Some of the larger festivals and just playing so many Australian people, it's just, and the food, so many memories.
I absolutely love that. Look, I had no idea about the trapeze singer being kind of born and shaped in Melbourne, so that is very, very exciting. A bit of history for everyone listening. Sam, I do want to say very quickly, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. It is much appreciated. Very excited for people to be able to hear Hen's Teeth, and we'll make sure there are links in the show notes for people to buy the record and catch you on tour later this month. But thank you again for coming on.
Thanks so much, Simon. It's great to talk to you.